I'm about to show you the best widget that I've ever made, not only because it makes programming for me more fun, but it also makes it much easier for me to figure out what the LLM is doing. In order to explain that widget though, I'm gonna have to explain Marimo just a little bit, because that's gonna help motivate what happens next. So I'm inside of a Python notebook here. This is a Python cell, this is the code that I'm asking for, and this is just a list of a couple of widgets that I can interact with. One of these widgets is a slider, but one of these widgets is a very custom widget. This is the paint widget that lets me draw a circle with a cross through it. And you can also see that as I do, this little image up above over here updates. You can also see some other cool stuff like this rotate slider, and as I move it around, you can see the image above update. And there's also this little convolutional kernel thing that also lets me play around. And as I slide things from left to right, you can see that the colors actually also invert. So that's a whole lot of fun to play with, and all this stuff is wired together with Python. But as is, I actually spot an issue. Part of the issue is the fact that I got to do a whole lot of scrolling, but also a part of the issue is that the structure of the code that's behind all of this is just hidden from me. And sure, after playing a little bit, I can kind of see how that paint widget together with this rotation thing, that's going to update this image, right? So it's not entirely a mystery after interacting a little, but it feels like we can do so much better, especially because of how Marimo works. Because in Marimo, I can make a new cell, a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, and then I can have this a plus b cell down below over here. And as I make a change to the first cell, you're going to see that the cell down below updates. So technically, you know, if I were to give this cell a name over here, internally, Marimo is able to figure out that if a value of a variable updates, that then another variable depends on it. This works by definitions in separate cells, so this is how cells could be chained together, but assuming that all these variables are in their own little cell, why don't we just come up with a better way to represent what is happening here? And that's something that I'm doing down below in this widget DAG widget. And this is my first non-anywidget widget. This is actually a Marimo widget. I'm using Marimo components to render this. But what is happening under the hood here is we have our variables. Marimo can figure out in what order these variables have to run. And from here, also at a glance, it's really clear for you what this entire algorithm is doing. I can rotate this thing around and you're going to see that, oh, there's actually two images in this case. There's the first image and that then gets passed through over here. And there's a second convolutional kernel. I can again play around here, see things update. I can again rotate in maybe a different direction. I can again maybe start drawing a little bit here to maybe get some extra lines in, etc. But just by having this overview where it's clear this thing is an input to that other thing, I just immediately have so much more clarity and it's so much more obvious how things are wired together, not to mention the fact that I can also have a more horizontal layout, way less scrolling needs to happen. And yeah, as far as giving myself a quick overview goes, this is amazing. Now, that was the first demo, but there's a second thing I can do with this widget. What you're looking at here is a system that's related to this riddle. It's from the Fiddler on the Proof substack. It's an amazing substack, but the probabilistic challenge here is that there are 4 teams. All of the teams have some sort of energy bar. Every team has to decide how much energy they're going to put into a game, so it's going to be semifinals. If you're going to spend energy in that semifinal round, you're not going to be able to use it in the final round. And the question is, assuming everything is random, what is the best thing you can do as a coach as far as your energy allocation is concerned? So I have this library called DiceKit, and the way that a probability distribution is rendered is as a little chart with possibilities. And what I'm able to do here is I'm able to say, hey, there's the first semifinal, that's going to be my opponent later. What is the probability distribution of the energy that's left after that game? Then what I can do is I can slide around over here and define the energy that I put in my first game. And then as everything flows, I can see, hey, what's the probability that I'll win the first match? What's the probability that I'll win the second match? You multiply those two things together, and that's the probability that you're going to win both matches. And, you know, this is pretty cool. I can kind of get an impression of how this system behaves. As I'm declaring variables, the only thing I got to do is just put them in here, and the order of things is just made clear. And this gives me a great opportunity to maybe find some bugs, and I totally found some this way, because it's just one thing I got to look at that describes the entire program. But you can also mix and match this with some other widgets to make things a little bit more interesting. And that brings me to another new widget that I made. This is the ScatterLog widget. The way it works is it's just going to log whenever something updates. So down below over here, you can see that I'm referring to a slider. That slider is a slider that's over here in my DAG. Whenever that slider updates, this cell down below would trigger, and that means that values will actually get logged. So as you can see, as I move the slider around over here, I'm going to log a couple of values. I'm going to log the energy level as well as the win probabilities for all of this. And now suddenly, as I'm playing around, I can actually get a bit of an overview of what this system actually behaves like. And as I play around, you can also see that there's this optimal amount of energy that I can put into the system. And again, how do I get here? Well, I just hook up a couple of Python variables and this system just appears automatically. The order of the variables is determined by Marimo, and the way that things are rendered, well, Python objects can be rendered on the command line with a normal representation string, but in a browser, you can define this display method that allows you to define how an object is supposed to render. So yeah, this just makes it so much more fun for me to go ahead and fiddle around, but also you can imagine if an LLM were to produce something like this, it is also way easier for me to debug. So, that's the first widget I made. I also made a bunch of other ones, and in this part of the video, I'm just going to go over them really quickly, because otherwise the video would just be way too long. One thing I also did is I added support for JavaScript via these widgets. There is this EsmWidget that you can go ahead and use now, and it effectively just accepts a large string that represents JavaScript, and that allows you to use whatever ESM tool you like this JavaScript library called motion.dev. As a demo, you can see that I move the slider around, and that this cube at the bottom updates automatically. All the logic on how to animate this is inside of that JavaScript string, but in order to wire things together, the one trick you can do is you can say, look, I've got my Marimo slider that has a value. Whenever that updates, this X will also update in this dictionary. I'm going to assign that to this data variable that's on this motion box, and then this motion box knows, look, whenever that data changes, I got to update. It is a thin wrapper around anywidget, really. It just lets you import whatever ESM that you like, and this gives you a lot of freedom to just get on with it and maybe play around together with an LLM to get some of these animations working. And having some extra animations in the notebook can do a lot of good in terms of explaining what's happening in the notebook itself. A very specific variant of this idea can be found in this other widget, namely this ManimWeb widget. Just like before, the idea is you just paste a bunch of JavaScript into a string and you give that to this object. But this particular widget is going to assume that this library called ManimWeb is loaded, and that gives you access to these slide deck-like things that make these 3 blue, 1 brown-like animations. It's not 100% like the 3 blue, 1 brown Manim library, but it does give you a lot of tools to come up with good animations that can help explain what is actually going to happen in the notebook. You can make these slides by giving it a string, but you can also pass it a file that is on the internet. That way you can keep your notebook a bit more light. Notice that we don't just have these slides, you can also make these very pretty just static images, or what you can do is also do some things with 3D. This is using Three.js under the hood if I'm not mistaken. But again, these are tools that could make it a lot simpler for you to explain what's going to happen in the notebook before you show any code to the user. Now, another and final variation of this idea can be done with this library called Observable Plot. The folks over at Observable that make the really cool notebooks, as well as the D3 library, they maintain this library that you can now also import from here. Because we can assume you're dealing with data, we can do a few things on your behalf, like cast the data in the right format, but you can, again, still wire variables reactively. So, for example, I've got this pandas data frame over here that goes into this variable called vacancies. That vacancies is something that I'm passing in down below over here. And as a result, I can make a slider that updates that chart whenever I move things around. And you really can make really pretty charts with this library, I should say. You can also start thinking about maybe making a very bespoke library in the theme of your company using this library. That's also something that this approach could be very good for. The library also renders very quickly. I've just noticed it's pretty much real time, even though it does render most things anew, but it also comes with some sensible features that you might want, like the ability to roll a moving window. You could do that from polars or pandas if you like, but this plotting library also has a couple of features for that too. Another useful widget is this FramePlayer. In a lot of ways, it's quite basic. You just have to give it a list of frames to render, and then when you hit play, it is like playing a movie, but it's going to go over all, in this case, matplotlib images. You can also configure it to automatically loop, and while I'm using matplotlib here, you can also go ahead and use Python image library objects, and then you can do all sorts of fun things with that as well. There's a lot of these moments I found where, oh, it's just super easy to make a matplotlib image. Can I turn it into an animation real quick? And then instead of fuffing about with all these libraries, you just turn it into a list of images, and then you're also good to go for these good animations for your notebook. The final two widgets I just quickly want to mention are related to debugging. The first of which is related to asynchronous debugging. So I've got a couple of asynchronous functions over here. Some of these functions actually just do a little bit of sleeping. Other functions actually spin up other workers. And if I were to run the whole thing, there is this new feature in Marimo that lets you see what line is currently running, and that can be helpful while debugging. But if you're really keen to understand what's happening under the hood, you probably want to have something else, and that's where this async flow widget comes in. you can give it something to await and then tell AsyncFlow to trace it. And then it's just going to track how long everything took. And if we run it again, you should also see when this multi-worker triggers, you're going to see that 2 sub-workers also trigger. You can see all of that play afterwards in hindsight. And, this doesn't give you all the information of what's happening. It's not a perfect debugging tool, but it does give you a good glimpse. And you can also imagine that I'm going to work on other tools like this where, oh, I've got this one bespoke problem, but I just want to drill down deep into this one function. This is a way to go about that for asynchronous functions. If, however, you're keen to do things with normal Python functions, we also have the LiveEdit widget, and that's also worth a little bit of time. So I'm going to conclude this video with that. So over here, right, I've got the greatest common denominator function. And by all accounts, it's an elegant implementation. It's just a while loop. I'm flipping A and B, and I'm doing a mod operation over here. So implementation, super nice. It's just that if this is the first time you're looking at it, it might be a bit unwieldy or mysterious what's actually happening under the hood. So to make understanding that a little bit easy, we now have this LiveEdit widget that has this method called inspect_run, and you can pass a Python function in there with some arguments to run, and then the widget will generate and show you this interface that tries to explain everything that's happening. So on the left-hand side, there are some variables, A and B, and you can see that while I hover over, every point in the function where the variable is used lights up, but it also lights up on the right-hand side. So at the beginning over here, you can see I've got A and B. Those are the inputs to this function. And then we get to this while loop. And what we can do is at the end of each pass, we can just log what the values of all the variables are that are being defined or redefined on the inside. So as you can see over here, I can see how A and B change over time. And you can see that B gets swapped. It moves over here. It moves over here. It moves over here. And if this is the first time you're seeing this function, or if you're doing a debugging run and they're just off by one error, this is great. You can just inspect what's happening. Now, one thing that's particularly cool about this widget is that I can reuse the fact that we're in a browser. And that means that if you have a custom Python class that has a custom method on how to render an HTML, then I can actually use that too. So again, I've got this function and it's using this custom class. When I again run, you're going to see the code appear on the side. Again, all the highlighting works. But if I were now to look on the right, just to see what's happening in my little table, then you can actually see that the bar value updates. And it also knows how to render, so you can get this nice little bar chart happening over here. This is an example for a bar chart, but it will work with whatever you come up with. If you have a really nice way to highlight your object, maybe you can do it visually, that's going to show in here. So that also means that you can be more creative in how you want to debug your own objects. A final, and I think also my favorite example of this widget is in this gradient descent function over here. It does what you would expect. It does gradient descent, but it's a nice example where if you're debugging like this, the table can actually get quite long and unwieldy just because there's so many numbers in here. And when you look at this, it just feels like the table is just begging for there to be a chart. So what you can do is you can hover your mouse, hit a column title, hit click, and then a chart's going to appear on the right-hand side. Now, a really cool thing is that you can also do command click. That's going to make 2 lines appear in the same chart. Alternatively, what you can also do is shift click, and then charts are going to appear below each other. But it also means that if you're logging something that's happening in a for loop, you don't have to write extra logic for plotting. You can just put it in this widget and then generate the charts when you need to, which you can totally do in hindsight. I should say that what you're looking at here is version 0 of this idea, so there might be some tweaks that we can do here. I definitely have ideas, but as is, it is ready for people to play with. And if you're interested to play with any of these widgets, just know you can go to the documentation of the Wiggly Stuff library, and you can find all the creative widgets that I've been able to make over the course of the last 2 years. For every single widget, there is a MoLab link, so you can play with it right away. There's also an API description, and if you're dealing with an LLM, you can also go to the Markdown docs, which is something you just quickly copy and paste, give to the LLM, and then the LLM knows how to do things with this widget. Typically, LLMs these days are smart enough to figure out how to actually get to this part of the API documentation themselves. But if you want to do it manually, you can totally do that too. And if anything, the main thing I hope to get across is that there are a lot of new widgets that you should try out if you haven't already, and that you should also give yourself creative freedom to come up with some of these widgets yourself for your own use case, because the experience in the notebook just becomes so much better if you do.